I walked through the door expecting the scent of lavender and the quiet hum of the home I helped build for my mother's recovery. Instead, I found chaos. My childhood photos were gone. My research lab replaced by a kid's makeshift online school. And my brother, Nathan, sitting on my couch with a smirk casually telling me, "You don't live here anymore." Just like that. No warning. No discussion. Just betrayal. Masked as family unity and what's best for Mom. Have you ever been betrayed by the very people you trusted most? Like, share and comment below, because what happened next will leave you speechless. And don't forget to subscribe. My name is Autumn Wallace. I'm a 35-year-old epidemiologist living in Denver, Colorado, with a specialty in geriatric immune response. After 2 years of balancing my demanding job with caring for my mother post-stroke, I thought I had finally created a space of safety and healing for us both. I even co-purchased a quiet suburban home just 10 minutes from her medical center. But when I returned from a prestigious global health conference in Vancouver just 10 days away, everything had changed. My brother Nathan, along with his wife and 2 kids, had moved in unannounced. Furniture rearranged mail redirected even my name off the utility bills. I asked what was going on. Nathan looked me in the eye and said, "This isn't just your home anymore. It's a shared family home to care for Mom. You've been replaced by the same brother who hadn't lifted a finger when Mom collapsed in the kitchen 2 years ago. The same brother who hadn't visited her once during her rehab. But this wasn't just about space. It was about control. And the truth was darker than I could have ever imagined. What led to this betrayal? Let me take you back to where it all began. I wasn't the golden child. That title belonged to Nathan from the start. As far back as I can remember, I was the one expected to do, while he was the one allowed to be. If Nathan brought home a C on a report card, Mom would pat his head and say at least, "You tried." But when I earned straight A's, her response was always, "That's what I expect from you." I wasn't praised. I was benchmarked. Nathan was coddled. I was held accountable. When Dad left, I was 13. Nathan was 10. And while I took on more responsibilities, packing school lunches, folding laundry, learning how to stretch a single paycheck into a week's worth of groceries, he was allowed to retreat. No one expected him to step up, least of all our mother. I worked 2 part-time jobs while putting myself through college. Nathan dropped out of community college and somehow still ended up with a brand new car courtesy of Mom's savings. When I got into Johns Hopkins for grad school, she didn't even come to my graduation. Nathan needed help moving that weekend, and she couldn't let him down again. Even so, I never stopped showing up. I built a career studying immune vulnerabilities in the elderly because I wanted to protect people like her. When she had a minor stroke 2 years ago, I was the one who flew home immediately. I took a leave of absence, toured rehabilitation centers, chose the best one, and eventually bought a house we could share somewhere close to her care team, and with enough space for me to work remotely when needed. Nathan didn't visit once during her 3-month rehab. Not once. He said he was too busy with his startup. Turns out that startup went under 6 months ago. And right around that time, he started reconnecting with Mom. At first, I didn't question it. I wanted to believe the best. Maybe he'd grown up. Maybe he finally realized family mattered. But then, strange things started happening. Bills went missing. Mom became oddly defensive when I asked about her medications. Her bank account showed large withdrawals. I couldn't explain. And then came the moment that broke something inside me. I found out Nathan had transferred her entire medical power of attorney to himself without telling me. He'd even convinced her to amend the deed, claiming it was for legal streamlining in case anything happened. I only discovered it when I tried to submit a tax claim for the home and was told I was no longer listed as a co-owner. The house I paid for, the woman I cared for, and the brother I'd always protected now circling me like a predator, hiding behind a smile. But even then, I hadn't seen the full picture, because what I would uncover next changed everything. Let me tell you what I found when I started digging into my brother's lies. I don't know exactly when my suspicion turned into certainty. Maybe it was the night I stood in the hallway outside Mom's room, hearing Nathan whispering something about making it all official soon. Or maybe it was when I saw my niece using my work tablet, the one that had confidential research files stored on it, and realized they'd reset the entire device. That's when I knew. This wasn't just family drama. This was premeditated, strategic, and possibly criminal. I took a week off work and started quietly gathering evidence. I didn't tell Nathan. I didn't tell Mom. I just observed, documented, and waited. The first thing I uncovered hit like a punch to the stomach. Nathan had filed for guardianship over my mother while I was away. Not temporary power of attorney, full legal guardianship. He claimed I was rarely present, neglectful, and too emotionally volatile to care for her. All of it lies. But he'd timed it perfectly. He filed while I was in Vancouver for the conference. Then came the financials. Using his newly acquired authority, he had Mom sign a loan document against our house, a home she technically now owned alone. Thanks to the deed amendment I never consented to. The house had been reappraised, and a reverse mortgage had been issued in Mom's name. The money redirected to a new joint account. His and hers. Mom had no idea. Or at least, that's what I told myself. But the law in Colorado is clear. If a person is under medication that affects cognition, any legal signing is invalid. And I had proof. The day she signed the loan, her doctor's records showed she was on a new benzodiazepine for anxiety, one that impaired memory and judgment. I brought all of this to her. I laid out the papers, the bank statements, the guardianship request. I was shaking heart in my throat, begging she would finally see what he was doing. Instead, she looked up at me and said coldly, "Nathan's here every day. You only come back when it suits you. Maybe you're the one who's after something." That moment broke something inside me, not because I didn't expect it, but because a small part of me still believed she would choose me. Still believed that all the sacrifices, the late nights, the career pauses, meant something, but I wasn't done. I turned my focus to documentation. I started recording everything: conversations, medication logs, timestamps of when Nathan came and went, screen captures of his bank activity, I accessed through Mom's shared accounts. I took photos of the room that used to be mine, now a cluttered digital classroom with my degrees boxed up and shoved into the closet. The final straw I discovered, Nathan had applied for federal caregiver subsidies under his name. Subsidies meant for full-time caretakers using falsified schedules and medical reports. Reports I had written, now altered. He'd even digitally forged my signature on one of the forms. It was no longer just a betrayal. It was fraud. I hired a lawyer specializing in elder abuse and fiduciary fraud. She was ruthless, methodical, and understood the emotional layer beneath the legal mess. Together, we filed an injunction to freeze all financial transactions related to Mom's estate and the house. We also filed a formal petition challenging Nathan's guardianship claim, citing cognitive impairment and conflict of interest. 1 week later, we received a temporary restraining order prohibiting any further financial decisions on Mom's behalf until the court could review the case. Nathan was livid. He cornered me in the garage, his face red, voice shaking, hissing, "You think you can take everything from me." After all I've done for her, I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't. I just looked at him and said, "You did this to yourself." He stormed off, and Mom, who had overheard the tail end of it, still said nothing. No defense of me. No questions. Just silence. And that silence was louder than any insult. Yet strangely, as the legal case gained traction, I felt something else stirring beneath the pain clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't playing the role of the good daughter, the peacekeeper, the fixer. I was standing up for myself. I was fighting back. But even with the legal protections falling into place, I knew something had shifted irreversibly. The house may have been frozen in court filings, but emotionally, it was no longer home. What happened when the court finally stepped in? You won't believe how far Nathan was willing to go. I always believed there was a limit to how cruel family could be, that even in the darkest moments, some invisible thread, shared blood, shared history, would hold things together. But I was wrong. A week after the temporary court order was granted, I returned home to find all of my remaining belongings, books, framed certificates, my medical ID badge stacked in boxes on the porch. One was open. My white coat crumpled on top like garbage. Taped to the front was a note in Nathan's handwriting. "This isn't your home anymore. Respect Mom's wishes and move on." I stood there, frozen keys still in my hand. The house was silent. I rang the doorbell. Nothing. I knocked. Still nothing. Through the window, I saw my niece typing on her laptop at the dining table, feet up my mother's old dishes sitting beside her. She glanced up, saw me, and quickly pulled the curtain shut. I wasn't just being erased from my home. I was being erased from my family's story. The betrayal wasn't a stab in the back. It was a slow, methodical dismantling of everything I had built, everything I thought I had meant to them. When I confronted Nathan at the next court-mandated mediation session, he was smug, calm, like someone who truly believed he'd already won. "Mom doesn't want you around," he said flatly. You made everything about you Autumn. She sees it now. My lawyer countered with a thick folder of evidence, doctored records, account transfers, forged forms. But nothing prepared me for the moment. The judge turned to my mother and asked her directly, Do you feel pressured by your son or daughter in any way? She took a long breath, looked down at her hands, then said, I just want peace. I don't want Autumn starting more drama. No denial of the documents. No concern over being manipulated. Just silence. And then blame directed at me. The breath left my lungs. I felt humiliated, exposed, like the room had shifted, and I was the only one left standing on cracked ground. That night I sat in my car outside the house, for over an hour, engine off, staring at the porch light. I wanted desperately to believe this was temporary, that my mother was confused, that somehow, some way, things could return to the way they were. But deep down, I knew that door had closed long before the court got involved. The next day, Nathan lost it. The court had issued an expansion to the asset freeze after we uncovered yet another account he'd opened in Mom's name. This one used to buy himself a used BMW and pay off a credit card. He came to my workplace, and made a scene in the lobby. You think you're some kind of hero, he shouted. You're not Mom's savior, Autumn. You're just bitter and alone. Security pulled him away. My supervisor gave me a knowing look, but said nothing. I saw the pity in her eyes. It was unbearable. I went home and sobbed into the one pillow I hadn't packed yet. I didn't cry for the house. I cried for the little girl who used to write her mother letters every Mother's Day with the words, I'll take care of you forever. Because now I knew I had been fighting for a version of Mom that only existed in my memory. That realization crushed me. I stopped going to court in person. I let my lawyer handle the rest. I stopped checking Nathan's emails. I stopped calling Mom. I started therapy. And it was there, in that quiet room, with a woman who didn't know my family, didn't care about the drama that I finally said the words I had never dared say out loud. I don't think my mother ever truly saw me. The therapist didn't nod. She didn't rush to affirm. She simply asked, and what would it mean if that were true? I sat there breathing in that truth, like it was both poison and oxygen. It would mean I didn't fail her. It would mean I didn't have to keep proving my worth. It would mean I could stop trying to be the daughter she never wanted and start becoming the woman I needed to be. That shift, quiet as it was, changed everything. I started sleeping again. I started saying no to guilt, to shame, to the stories I'd repeated for decades that kept me small. And then one evening, I opened my inbox and saw it. An email from the Global Immunology Consortium in Amsterdam. They were offering me the lead role in a multi-year project focused on aging immune systems and pandemic resilience. It was a dream job, a legacy opportunity, and I almost deleted it because I was still clinging to a home that no longer existed, to a family that had shut the door in my face. But something had changed in me. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done being trapped in a life built on appeasement and emotional loyalty that ran one way only. What pushed Autumn to finally say yes to herself, and how did she take her life back for good? I didn't say yes to Amsterdam right away. For 3 nights I let the offer sit in my inbox, like an unopened letter from a life I wasn't sure I deserved anymore. My heart was torn in two, one half still chained to the idea of duty, of being the good daughter, the other pulling me towards something unfamiliar freedom. I kept imagining my mother in that house, not the woman who had shut me out of my own home, but the version of her I used to believe in, the one who made homemade soup when I had the flu, the one who kissed my forehead before standardized tests. But that version hadn't been real in a long time. Maybe never. I finally forwarded the email to Dr. Ainsley, my old professor from grad school, and one of the few people I trusted to tell me the truth. Her response was short, brutal, loving. Autumn, you've been saving everyone else your whole life. Save yourself this time. Take the damn offer. That night, I lay in bed and remembered something she once told our class during a lecture on ethical boundaries in public health. When systems break you, it's not your job to keep them intact. It's your job to survive and lead. I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I was bruised, grieving, tired. But I was still here. And that had to mean something. So I got in my car and drove across town to the care facility where Mom had been relocated under court supervision. I didn't bring flowers. I didn't bring guilt. She was sitting by the window flipping through a magazine. "Hi, Mom," I said gently. She looked up startled, then quiet. Her eyes narrowed the way they always did when she was about to say something hurtful. But she didn't yell. She didn't apologize either. Instead, she said, "I thought you'd moved on." And in that moment, I realized she hadn't just given up on me. She never expected me to stay, or leave, or fight, or forgive. She expected nothing. I came to say goodbye, I told her. Not because I'm running, but because I deserve more than waiting for love that won't come. She scoffed softly. "You always were dramatic." I smiled, not bitterly, not broken, just done. I got a job offer. Amsterdam. I leave in 2 weeks. She said nothing, turned a page. That was my answer. I walked out feeling strangely light, not joyful, but free. Like I had finally let go of something I never had to hold on to in the first place. Back home, I sat on the floor of my half-packed apartment, called the project director in Amsterdam, and said the words that changed my life. Yes, I accept. And thank you for seeing what I still forgot I was capable of. I booked my flight, sold the rest of my things, left the keys on the counter for the realtor handling the sale of my portion of the house, and most importantly, I set one final term in place. Every cent from the house would be locked into a medical care trust for my mother, untouchable, protected, and monitored by a third-party fiduciary. Nathan wouldn't get a dime. Not anymore. But even across the ocean, Autumn's story wasn't over. In the fallout of her decision, consequences came knocking for everyone left behind. 2 weeks later, I boarded the plane to Amsterdam with nothing but 2 suitcases and a flash drive filled with research and freedom. But I didn't leave quietly. Before I left, I finalized the legal structure for the sale of my share of the house. The entire payout, a substantial 6-figure sum, was moved into an irrevocable medical trust solely for my mother's health care. Access only granted to a licensed elder care fiduciary. Nathan lucked out entirely. I didn't tell him. I let the documents do the talking. He found out the morning the house closed when he tried to log into an account that no longer belonged to him. The fury in his voicemail was almost pathetic. "I built this family," he screamed. "You had no right. No right. I was the one who bought that house. I was the one who stayed up with Mom through seizures, insulin crashes, and post-stroke rage. He just walked in when it was convenient, and now he was locked out. Of her money, of her influence, of control. As for Mom, the independent evaluator appointed by the court had officially concluded she was mentally compromised at the time of financial transfer, making every decision Nathan Fort had through legally voidable. His name was blacklisted from elder care guardianship for 5 years. That went on public record. I didn't destroy them. I simply took my power back and gave it consequences. And on the other side of the ocean, in a city of canals and second chances, Autumn found something even deeper than revenge healing. Now every morning in Amsterdam, I wake up to sunlight pouring through my window and the gentle hum of bicycles below. My apartment is small, but filled with quiet, the kind that doesn't ache, the kind I never knew I needed. I sip coffee by the canal and draft my latest research paper on immune response in the elderly. Its first line: emotional abuse within families often spreads more silently than any virus and cuts deeper. There are still moments when I miss what I wanted my family to be, but I no longer feel broken by what they were. I no longer feel guilty for choosing myself. Forgiveness. I found it. But forgetting. That's not the goal. Remembering and walking away anyway is the real freedom. If you've ever been made to feel like a stranger in your own home, if you've ever had your worth measured by how much you sacrifice, hear this. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are brave. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave the house that tried to bury you and build your own brick by brick. If this story moved you, share it, subscribe, or tell me yours. You're not alone.